Okay, let's review a situation when we want to run our application as an API. So let's say we've got our Laravel application which serves the purpose of API, and then we got some sort of client-side application. And in this case we would like to run our client-side application, for example view application on main domain, and then we would have our Laravel as an API endpoints only. So what we can do, I'm just gonna quickly jump into terminal, and I'm gonna list containers, and I'm gonna SSH into workspace. So let's do docker compose exec /user workspace bash, and here we're gonna create the next application. So quickly let me go to next. So we're gonna grab this, get started, and what we can do, we're gonna grab this, copy that, so let's paste that, and we're gonna call it client. So let's create that up. Doesn't matter, so cd client, let's do npm install. Okay, all is done. So let me exit this. So we got our terminal empty here. So okay, let's go back to our code editor, and what we're gonna do in our code base, we're gonna look for our client and package the JSON, which is gonna do host equal to 0000, and our port is going to be 3000. So that will allow us to start application. Okay, good. Now what we can do, we can adjust virtual host for Nginx. So let me quickly do that. So I will go in here, and in our vhost, what we can do, we've got our location. So this we want to be able to run only on our API. So let's do this, and then we're gonna add another location, which is going to be location on the root. And then what we want to do, we want to do proxy pass, and then we're going to do HTTP, and here we're going to say workspace 3000. I think that is looking good. Let's save that. Actually we need to do, okay, let's just leave it for this virtual host for now. So that should work. So now if I go back to my Docker Compose, I need to also link workspace, just like that, and I think we should be able to do that. So let's quickly go back to our code base, and in our routes, in this case we don't want any web routes, so let me comment this out, and API, let's just get rid of that, and let's do route get, oh for God's sake, route get, and let's do test function, and let's just return something. Return as a test hello from API. So that should be alright. So let's quickly jump into the browser, and now if we go to our API test, we've got our string return, and that's okay. So now we won't be able to only be able to access our API on this route /API, and on our main domain we want to be able to access our application from from our client. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna quickly just recreate our Nginx container with the new configuration, and that should just work fine. So I will apply new configuration, new virtual host, and looks like it was done. So now if I go back to the browser and try to visit that, it won't work. Let's check if API is working, and it doesn't. Something went wrong, so let's do docker logs. Okay, so we've got some stuff. Okay, I forgot semicolon. Okay, let's try again. Okay, now let's see. Okay, API it's working. So if we visit test, we can see it. But if we go to the to the root of the domain, it doesn't work. So now if we just go back to our code editor, let me quickly just SSH and do cd client, and from here let's do npm run dev. Let's start server. Looks like we are serving, so let's go back to the browser, and as you can see, our client-side application is running on the root of the domain. And then if we go to our API /test, we should be able at the same time make calls to our API. Okay, so this is all looking good, but this is all manual setup and I'm not quite happy with it. I want to be able just to flip the switch and have a possibility to do that from my .env. So what I'm gonna do instead, let me close that. In my .env, I'm going to create another variable which is going to be called nginx laravel dash API, and I'm gonna set this to false for now. And let me just quickly uncomment this. Okay, good. So this is done in here. So next what we're gonna do, in our docker compose we need to pass this as an argument. So let's do that, and then assign the value from our .env. Let's save that, and in our docker file for nginx we're gonna also have to grab this. So let's do that, and then assign this to our environment variable, so like that and like that. So this will be passed to our virtual host. And now in our virtual host, what we can do, we can split the code in here. So what I'm gonna do instead, let me just grab all of this. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do that, and then AOF, but we are gonna be appending to the file, and what we want to grab end of it. So let's do this, and let's put that in there. this, we want to actually have another condition. Maybe this is maybe not the most glamorous way of doing things, but it will work. So let's do that, and then we're gonna have else statement and fy, and what we want to write to the file, but again we're gonna be appending, so like that, and then we're gonna have AOF, and exactly the same thing in here. So, but with the exception, because we need to check condition of this variable, so I'm gonna do that. If it's true, then write to the file. Okay, this part of the code. So let's do this. Great. And if it's false, you just gonna write this. So cut. Okay, this in here, but without this, and that should be just fine. So let's have a look. Nginx Laravel API is true. Run this, else run that, and this is appending. Okay. Alright, this is all looking pretty good. Okay, let's try to run this, and I'm gonna set it to false. So let's just try to run this very quickly. Let's try to recreate our Nginx container and see if we get any errors, because I'm not pretty sure if that's gonna work. So look, we'll get a new certificate, but that's not a problem. Nginx is running, so if I go back to the browser and have a look, we should see our Laravel welcome page. So now if I go back and change that to true, oops, and let's run it again. Shouldn't be able to see the welcome page. Okie dokie. So let's see. Okay, that is looking pretty good. API test. We can make API calls. So just do was a final confirmation. Let's get into our container, cd client, and let's do npm run dev. Let's start our client server, and we should be able to see our client. Very good. Okay, all is working fine, so I'm quite happy with that. I'm just gonna go back and do some final adjustments to the virtual host. So what I need to change, else AOF, so this one, we need to grab this one, and we need to grab this one as well. So actually we're gonna grab all of it, so give me that, and what we're gonna do instead, let's remove that. Actually, you know what, paste that instead. So AOF, this is closed. This is looking good. AOF, and we need to close should be alright. Okay, so this is done. So yeah, so as you can see, now with just a simple configuration variable, we can actually change the mode of our application from API to normal Laravel application. So let's do that, and let's quickly rerun it. Let's quickly check. Okay, and all is working as expected.